Introduce yourself.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
What's up, everybody? I'm Brad.
And I'm Sean.
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee tonight, and I'm double fisting. I've got the end of a smoothie that Becca made me at Sips, and I've got just some black tea with some little bit of cinnamon in it. What you got?
Hey, I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm in my office. I got my books, my movies. I've got Baby Yoda's in here today, and Baby Groot back there.
Dueling Yodas?
Dueling Yodas.
Nice.
And I'm drinking some tea out of this sweet Star Wars mug that my wife got me recently for our anniversary.
Very nice, very nice. Well, tonight we are going to be talking about the second half of the third and final season of Dark, Netflix show, German Netflix show. We talked about the first half about a week ago or so. And now we're going to talk about the second half of the season, as well as kind of just give our ending thoughts on the series as a whole. We're going to kick it off with our up thumbs, and Sean's going to start. So what did you love about this season? The second half and as a whole.
This season, it started off a little rocky for me, but the second half in particular, it finished in what I called satisfied. I know I've said that a lot to you, and we haven't talked about it much, but I was definitely satisfied. It all wrapped up in a way that made sense for the most part to me. So that was my major up thumb that I had about this. What about you?
I would concur. That first half of the season, whilst great, I don't know, man. I feel like it's almost like they didn't know. I believe they knew what they were doing, but it makes you wonder, like, did they know the middle of the season? But they obviously did. They're writing these shows, like, in a vacuum, in a bubble, and then they're putting it all out, so it's not like they are reading the audience or anything as it goes. But it seemed like episodes 3 and 4, kind of where you and I left off, kind of took a dip, and then episode 5 was like, oh my gosh, 3 major deaths, the biggest death we've ever seen in the show, and just making your mind bend again. Every time I've said this a bunch of times, but every time I start to be like, I got this, they would throw a wrench right into my spokes, stick a big metal post through my bike spokes and flip my bike over. Man, episode 5 was phenomenal. 6 was really good, and 7, very emotional kind of montage, I guess, at the end, walking us through the cycle, and then we won't get into the very end of it quite yet. But what else? Anything else?
Can I throw something in? Yeah, I was gonna say another major up thumb that I liked is we finally kind of saw how Jonas becomes Adam. They skipped around a bit, but we did see. And it made sense, like, how this kind of optimistic guy that, like, wants to fix everything is driven to the point where he's, like, wanting to end it all. So I liked that. But it was also pretty depressing.
It was depressing to watch him do some of the things that he did, obviously, but whenever, getting into episode 8 and the end, when it was done, I felt like he was the good guy. I don't know. They were both good and both bad. They both, in the end, Deus Ex Claudia came in and, basically rendered both of them completely pointless. Everything they had been doing was for naught. So, I guess it doesn't really matter.
One could say that their whole existence is dark.
One could say that. Amazingly acted. The whole series was amazingly acted, amazingly shot. I feel like that's really obvious. My plan is to go back and do a rewatch again. This time I watched it, like I told you earlier, Sean. I watched the whole thing I guess you watched it all in English too. The other 2 seasons I watched in German with just English subtitles, but this time I watched it all in English subtitles, and I feel like I may have missed out on a little bit of emotional impact this time. But I'm always eating, So I don't want to eat like loud, crunchy bacon and chips and stuff, and try to have to stare at the screen and read the whole
Too
time.
much for your brain, especially this show. Like, I can barely follow along whenever they're speaking my language.
Exactly. Anything else for you, Sean, on Up Thumbs specific?
No, I think I'm ready to move on. I agree with what you're saying. Majority of this season, just like the rest of the show, really liked. So, I definitely recommend it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So down thumbs. Shall I kick off our very light down thumb section?
Yeah, you go ahead.
I appreciate that. Down thumbs. And we're just talking about this season, and I feel like this season is the season that felt most like a show, where the other seasons were like so incredibly unique and mind blowing and deep. This show, I feel like this season made some choices that were very like TV show-ish, like a mostly happy ending, like killing off characters to end plot lines, basically being like, we ran out of time, so they're dead. This like just we talked in the middle of the. I feel like this might have come up on our other video where we're like, how are they gonna tie all this up? And then literally the next episode they're like cutting cords, just snip, Katarina, dead, in an amazing and intriguing fashion. But still, how's Ulrich gonna get out of prison? Oh wait, he's not, because the double whammy of depression. He's not getting out, and Katarina's getting killed by her own mother. Okay, seriously. And also, can I just ask this question? Feel free to sound off in the comments if you've made it this far into our video. What's with this universe and every single fight scene having a fist-sized rock? Like, if I was going to get in a fight with somebody in this universe, and I was like, wait! Let's not do this right here because there's a fist-sized rock. This is going to go really bad for one of us, one way or the other. So it's like, in these two alternate worlds, there's fist-sized rocks everywhere,
Just
exactly
within
this
arm's
big.
reach.
And really, you could survive this entire show if you just wore a helmet. Really, essentially, is all you really have to do. Because I think that's the only way anybody died was by getting bludgeoned.
Not Martha.
What?
I said not
Couldn't
Martha.
survive. What about Martha?
She couldn't survive with a helmet.
No.
Either
That
one of
is
herself.
true. Yeah. If you are Martha or going to be killed by Martha, you pretty much can't. A helmet won't do the job. But a lead bulletproof vest might help.
Well,
anyway.
what about what Adam does to her though?
So I'm saying she'd put that lead vest over her head and maybe have a chance.
Microwave.
Oh yeah, so light down thumb. I know sometimes I feel like my pizza rolls were cooked using the energy of two apocalypse. I don't know how you say
The
it.
God particle.
Yeah. Anyway, so that they just like cutting off of things, and then I didn't realize at the time, but that's also what they did at the end of season 2, where they killed the power plant blowing up. Also wiped out a bunch of plot lines that you're like thinking, what's his name? Alexander. Like his whole plot line was like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have time for that. I mean, if you're on Netflix, I guess you have to be afraid that they're just gonna one day be like, yeah, you don't have any more seasons. So it's probably smarter that they just knock it out.
Yeah.
Because Netflix is the place you go to finish your show if a network cuts you. So if Netflix cuts you, you're done. Where do you go from there? Besides like America Online or something. What about you? Downlines. What an idiot. Down thumbs for you?
My major down thumb for the season was just that they had that Deus Ex Machina. We kind of hinted at this earlier when we had briefly spoken about the season and the ending. But there was like the one thing that anybody could do to fix whatever problem they were going through. And it was that they explained when these two timelines are crossing, there's a glitch in the Matrix. That's literally what they say sometimes. a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, I didn't like that they referenced a movie.
Yeah,
like they referenced a movie in our reality. That was a little bit just kind of cheap. They could have just made another word.
But yeah, so
they got it.
Yeah, so there's this glitch, and with that, you can change the outcome of what is supposed to be unchangeable. From like that's what they have been setting up this whole time, is that you can't change it because it's all a loop. It's all repeating. So your actions cause the actions of everybody else, and by going in the past, you're causing everything to happen. But there's this one loophole that they make up where Jonas dies, but just kidding, Adam pulls Jonas from that spot. Martha dies, just kidding, they pull Martha from it. And then, who's the white devil? What's her name? Claudia, yeah. Claudia dies, but just kidding, she rescued herself from this moment. So that was the only thing that seemed a little... It just seemed like it wasn't that smart of a move on their end. Everything else in the show seemed really smart, but this was like, hey, we don't really know what to do, so we got to come up with something to tie in these loose ends.
I mean, they had a year. I would have waited a little longer, or I just 2 more episodes, and you could have kind of just fleshed it out, beefed it up a little bit to where we didn't have to be going like just putting, poking like small holes in it for a show that like was really well sealed, and like they played by their own, they made their rules and played by them. I feel like at the end they kind of broke their own rules a little bit, and that will affect my final thumb, I think, for the series as a whole. And I guess we can get more into that in a minute when we talk about our series kind of final up thumbs and down thumbs, but that's kind of it for me right now. I mean, there's plenty to... I just feel like that because they went so fast and they spent time on things that I didn't feel... Like, now that I know the whole show, I just take season 3, I feel like there was things that they did, especially episodes 3 and 4, that just, like, that ended up not being vital to the outcome of the show in time that they could have spent... a thing that they introduced, and they waited till what? The last or second to last episode was the years on the screen clicking by. That really helped a lot. I mean, it really helped me track. And I also don't know that they needed to continue to add cycles to the beginning and the end of the show. By the time it was over, we're like in the early mid 1800s.
Yeah.
And like we're like in 2055. Like 3 was plenty to keep up with. I feel like they could have like just kept those stories a little more contained to 99 years instead of like 200 years. So that was I would have appreciated that they had used that mechanism earlier, and also set the time periods and stuff apart better by, I guess that now that I know it's over, I know that they did it by weather, which is interesting. The original world like rains constantly. The second world, like, I think it was foggy constantly or something. And the third world was like, it was just, we didn't get to see much of it, but it seemed like it was bright and stuff, and more happy. I thought, this is cheesy, and you can cut this if you want. It might be cheesy, but I already told this to you, but I thought it would have been cool if whenever the final Jonas and Martha were disintegrating, they popped up in the Garden of Eden, and they were Adam and Eve for our world. And so, like, the whole time we're first 2 seasons, basically, we're watching this story that's in our world. And then we realize that we're actually watching there's a second world, and we're watching these 2 worlds go back and forth. And then we find out that we actually were watching 2 worlds that were created by the real world. So we assume that that's our world. And then whenever they disintegrate, they go and create our world. So the whole time we're watching a completely like science fiction fantasy show that has nothing to do with Earth. But maybe I'm cheesy, or maybe I'm smarter than them. I don't know what it was. It's one of those 2 things. But what about time to do our thumb ratings for season 3? I need to think for a second.
while I have this time, I'm just gonna say 2 other down thumbs that I thought of. We can edit these out possibly, but one of the down thumbs. Whoa, somebody's lighting off fireworks. One of the down thumbs is that they didn't introduce the third world until the last episode.
That kind of goes along with Deus Ex Claudia. Just like, here's all this. But I totally agree.
And then the other one that I was going to say is that the whole time tunnel and Jonas and Martha seeing each other as kids made no sense. It reminded me of Interstellar, the bad parts of Interstellar.
Yes. Yes, exactly right. I've kind of just blocked that part out of the show already. Like, I haven't seen anything online explaining what the hell I was looking at. Like, I have no idea what just happened. And I'm watching it going, is something going to happen? And then it's just over, and then here I am, even more confused. So I think I'm just going to block that out, just like I blocked out the movie Interstellar entirely, actually.
So those were 2 extras that I just thought of off the top of my head. Do you have your season rating?
I do. You can go first.
All right. I feel like I'm more forgiving than you. I don't know. I think maybe just because we talked about our down thumbs last, it makes me feel like, maybe this wasn't as good. But I'm going to give it an 8. 8 thumbs up for the 3rd season of Dark. It's not perfect. It's not the best season of the show, but I thought that it was satisfying and they stuck a landing that I was okay.
And we're going to discuss the finale, the ending, in a moment. So I'm going to go. I think each season was not as. I think each season was better than its next season. I guess if I had said that, it's the most confusing way possible. If I'm going to jump over you a little bit and say that I give season 1 a 10. I give season 2 a solid absolute 9. And I'll go with a low 8, like a almost 7.5. But I'll go 8 just because when it was when it was good, it was like awesome still. It's losing. It really, if they had just tightened it up, I could have gone 9 if they had just told the story a little bit more compact, I guess. I don't know I think you know what I mean, but I'm not getting the words out right. Just clean it up a little bit.
I mean, I know what you're saying. It didn't feel as fleshed out this go around.
Like way too many bones, way too much bones.
I do think that they had a plan the entire time still. Like, I think going back to the first episode, I kind of, with what they did with Tannhaus, like and how he was always not sure like if he wrote the book because it was just given to him and all the designs for the time machines were given to him, and I think that they had a plan, but they didn't really necessarily know exactly how they were going to get there.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the series as a whole. It's definitely for me. It's definitely a top. It's for sure a top 5 show. It could have been like a top 2 or 3 show for me, if it had I don't know. I cannot put into we're trying to put into words this feeling that I'm feeling, and I guess this should not be simple. Like when you finish it, you text me the word satisfied, and if you think of a report card back in the day. When schools existed and stuff, satisfactory was always second. There's always exceeds expectations above satisfactory. And in the end, it did not exceed the expectations that it had created for me. Yeah. So I would also give it a satisfactory. I felt like they just could have cleaned it up a little bit. And the ending, like we talked about before, I've kind of, in my head, decided it was ambiguous. Like, it was either a happy ending or it was all about the start when Jonas was born. Like, that's kind of what I'm having to do for myself to, give it that extra, the series that extra bump. But it felt like the ending of a TV show, like Seinfeld or Lost, or like where everybody's together and we kind of see the characters off. Now this had a twist in that it was no pun intended, the knotted people. But I would say that this show, when it was done, was satisfactory, like you said. What about you?
No, that's a really good point. I thought that what you said was perfect. It's exactly how I feel. Did not exceed expectations, but it met them.
But it's its own fault. It's its own fault for being so awesome the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't exceed the expectations it created. I want to make that clear. It's still one of the best shows I've ever seen, like, by a lot. By a lot for me.
That first season, man, so awesome. But, we don't deal with report cards here. We deal with thumbs. So
we do deal with thumbs.
How many thumbs do you give the whole series?
Still 9. It's still a 9 thumb show. I mean, it can't be a top 3 to 5 show for me and not be at least a 9. And it could have been a 9.5, except for the ending, and the third season just kind of like was a little bit hokey. But I'm going like a full, complete 9 thumbs. Like, all of them are totally full with like a little bit poking out. But I don't want to have decimal points. Let's not do that.
Well, dang it, Brad. Average minds think alike. We gave season 3 an 8, and I have to give the series a 9. It makes the perfect sense because, like you said, I would have probably given season 1 a 10, season 2 I don't know, 9.5 maybe, and then I gave this one an 8. So I think 9 is right there in the middle. It's a great show. Definitely one of the top ones that I've seen for sure. I'm interested to see what your number 1 is. I think I know what your number 1 is, but we'll get to that maybe in another video. But I think a 9 is really solid still. And hey, if some average guys like us really enjoyed it, then that's a good show in my book.
Which brings me to my closing remarks. I feel like you're going to agree with this, but I don't know if you and I talked about this or not. We haven't really talked much about the show because we wanted to get it like this, fresh for y'all from a distance, Also, in case you couldn't tell, I just slapped together a new background in the last 2 hours. I moved the carpet.
Yes, it's awesome.
Painted it, trying to look a little more clean here. But this is important for this show specifically, that I get this message out, and this might help explain my 8 thumbs and why this just couldn't be a top 3 show for me. When season 1 finished, I told everyone I knew about this show. I was like, and it was recommended to me by my brother and then also Sean. So Sean was ahead of me on this for sure. My brother told me first, and then Sean backed it up, and then it took me quite a long time. It wasn't until season 2 came out that I even started the show. But when I finished season 1, I was, this is insanity. Everyone has to watch this show right now. Everyone's got to watch this show. Like, I wouldn't stop. And then last summer we watched season 2 pretty quick, and every episode I'm remember I told you about that show? You've got to watch this show. You've got to watch it. You got to watch this show. And I told so many people, and just anybody I could get in front of, I was like, you got to watch this show. Season 3 started. Episode 1, I'm like, guys, Dark came out. You got to watch it. Don't forget, season 3's out. The people who I knew had watched it. You got to watch Dark. Watch it. Let's watch so we can talk about it. Let's go. And now that it's done, I don't feel like I have as much motivation to spread the word, to spread the good news. It's kind of like the first time I watched Lost. The first time I watched Lost, it was that's one of my favorite shows as well. I could recommend that show forever and ever. But when it ended, it was okay. And when I rewatched it, that's a whole nother video as well. But when upon rewatching Lost, I was like, okay, now I know what I'm getting myself into. And now I would recommend Lost, but I got to give it with a disclaimer. Like, you can't just say you've got to watch Lost. You have to say, but you know this. I feel like Dark will have to have a disclaimer now that goes with it, kind of like that. There's very few shows. I can only think of one on top of my head that requires no disclaimer, and it's not Dark, unfortunately. So that's kind of my rant. I will recommend Dark, but it will have to come with a mild disclaimer, and that for me holds the show back. Sorry, I had a lot to say there.
That was well put. Well put. Well, guys, it's been too long since we've been making these weekly videos, but we're getting back into it. Dark was the perfect start, and hopefully these movie theaters will open up soon. But thank you so much for sticking around with us. If you watched this whole video and you liked it, make sure you like down below and comment. Tell us what you think of Dark seasons 1 through 3, or season 3 specifically. Subscribe if you want to, and we'll see you next time, but only from a distance.